You'll all of you be aware of the dreadful events in America over the last week following the murder, let's not beat around the bush, of George Floyd. It's a reminder of how far we've still to travel in the name of equality and in the name of simple humanity. It's a reminder also of the incredible and flawed history that America has, and Britain, to be fair, in terms of race relations. And seeing the reports this week reminded me of that history and reminded me of that television programme you might remember in the 1970s called Roots. Roots was the dramatisation of a novel by Alex Haley. It told the story of the author's search for his African ancestry, a search that he traced back to a young Madinka boy from the Gambia named Kunta Kinte. This boy was captured whilst out looking for wood to make a drum by slavers, and he was put on board a ship to Maryland in Virginia, where he was sold as a slave to an owner who renamed him Toby. The importance of names is a recurring theme throughout the book. After attempting to escape and having a foot cut off in retribution, Kunta Kinte marries and has a daughter whom he calls Kizzy, although that is in fact a paraphrase of her real Madinka name, which was Kiesa, which means planted or stay put, a symbol of his realisation that he was there to stay. Kizzy herself was later sold to a plantation in North Carolina where she was raped and impregnated by the plantation owner. She subsequently had a son whom she named George, known as Chicken George through his ability to breed fighting cocks. As well as having solely an English name, he's also the first person in 3 generations to be given a recognised surname, that of Moors, a sign of increased naturalisation, but also, of course, of ongoing suppression, as that surname was the name of his slave master. The climax of Roots is when Alex Haley, through his research, finally arrives in the village where his grandfather, 7 times removed, came from. And the point is that up until that point, he had no idea what his ancestor's name actually was. It's only here at the end that he discovers the name of Kunta Kinte. And so the story goes full circle. In discovering the name of his African ancestor, so Haley also discovers something of himself. As I said earlier, names are a recurring motif in the book and in the TV series, because names are important. Names convey meaning, they convey emotion and affection, and they also convey truths. And today in our reading we heard the Great Commission, when Jesus told his disciples to go out into all the nations, to make them his disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. And it's important that we perceive these as names and not simply as functions. We relate to names. We relate to people. God the Father is the creator of all that is made, and all things are in his possession. We human beings are dependent upon him for our existence, and we can add nothing to what he has created. Yet the Father is willing to take us into his service. He is ready to use us, even willing to need us. And so he raises us up into the exalted position of being his servants. To be a servant of God is not something poor and miserable, rather it gives our life meaning and purpose. to know that we are desired by and useful to the Creator and Lord of all. As Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians 3, the one who plants and the one who waters have a common purpose, and each will receive wages according to the labour of each. For we are God's servants, working together. You are God's field, God's building. And yet God is also Son. And whilst our manner is that of servant, through God's own sacrificial love, inwardly we become also his children, heirs through adoption. As Paul again wrote in Romans 8, I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory about to be revealed to us. For the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the children of God. Through Christ's redeeming love and the Son's redeeming act, we come to share in his sonship. And as children of God, we become heirs of God also. What does being a child of God mean? Well, it means that we have access to God. And as a family together, we have access to one another also, as brothers and sisters, rejoicing together in the love of our parent. Yet that also is not the end. For God is Holy Spirit. And whilst we remain servants of God and children of God, we also become friends of God. This reflects the words of Jesus in John 15. I do not call you servants any longer, because the servant does not know what the master is doing, but I have called you friends, because I have made known to you everything that I have heard from my Father. And so we are friends of God through obedience to his word. As Jesus said only a few moments earlier, no one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. As friends of God, we talk to him in prayer, and our prayer becomes conversation. Friendship is the assurance that our prayer is heard and responded to. Each of these relationships that we enjoy with God is a new and different freedom. Each is a new and different way in which we can approach, understand, and respond to God as servant, child, and friend. A servant through faith, a child through hope, and a friend through love. Not simple names, but different and real ways of experiencing and knowing the living God. Amen.